What you want?
Okay, so to start this project off, we're going to make our eyes. What we're going to need is two 1-inch wood balls and a couple toothpicks, a drill bit, and a drill. Now our drill bit size is just a little bit smaller than the toothpick itself. So to start this off, we're going to take a punch and we're going to just gently tap and punch a couple small starting points in the balls. Now using a pair of pliers to hold the ball steady, you're just going to drill a hole about 1/4 of an inch deep or so into your wood ball. I'm going to do this on both sides. Please make sure, be careful, be cautious so you don't drill into your own finger or cause any kind of harm to yourself. Once you got the holes drilled, just break off the tip of your toothpick and insert your toothpick into the hole. I highly recommend, if you got a scrap piece of foam laying around, styrofoam, use it, because that's the purpose of the toothpick itself. And so we can paint all the way around our eye, get every piece of it without having to hold on to it. And then if you got styrofoam, as you see, it's very obvious. You just stick the toothpick down into the foam and it holds it into place, so you don't have to worry about it while it dries. Now, to speed up the drying process, I used a heat gun here just to speed it up as well. This is just straight white latex paint that I'm putting on. We're going to cover this depending on how well your paint covers. It took me, I think, 3 or 4 layers. You just want to get that paint on there so you're not seeing the wood through it, so it has a nice white shine. So just paint it in layers as many as it takes until you don't see the wood anymore. If you don't have a heat gun, just set it out to dry until it's good and just past tacky stage and put on your second coat of paint. But I like to speed things up a little bit using a heat gun like you see here. Now, using a drawing compass, we're going to start adding some detail to the eyes. So I set this real small for a small circle. Can't tell you how big it was, but it was just so we could start the outline of the pupil itself. And it was very hard to see the outline here in the video, but trust me, you can see it. I can see it very well with my own eyes after I got it done. So just trace around that and get your pupil set. Now next, all we're going to do is enlarge the compass some and get our outer, where the outer edge of the eye itself, so we have something to go off of as well for the color. Just gauge it, what you think looks best, then go back to that same center point and trace your outer edge of your eye, or your color part of your eye, onto the ball itself. Now, without changing the size of the compass, go ahead and go to your other ball and mark out the outer edge as well. That way we make sure that both our eyes, as far as the color portion, is going to be the exact same size. Now for these eyes, since one pupil is bigger than the other, we didn't draw the pupils on first and then go to the outside rim. I just drew the small purple on first, and then gauging this based off that picture we have, I just left a little bit of room for the color on the inside, so the rest of it was a big, huge pupil. Once we got those done, just going to take some black paint and a very small paintbrush. It's kind of a tedious process, and we'll start filling in the pupils with black paint. Start on either one, it doesn't matter, just whichever one you want to go with. I start off on the smaller one because it seems easier for me at times. But using the lines that we just drew on, just simply like color in a coloring book, but with paint and a small paintbrush, just paint inside the lines. It's that simple. Now it's time to start adding the base color to our eyes themselves. So I based these in a bright yellow for the color of the eye, or for the base color of the eye. This yellow was very bright. It was pretty transparent as well. So it took me 2 or 3 coats to really get the yellow to be vibrant where you could really see it. It kind of looks decent here, but trust me, I did this at least 3 times so that the yellow really had so the yellow just really stood out well. And you're going to paint this yellow just like you did the pupils. You're just staying inside the lines like you learned back in 1st grade when you were coloring. Color inside the lines and it's going to turn out good. Now we're going to add some depth in this color. So what I took was some red, and the first thing I did was take that red and go around the edge of the pupil itself. Once I got around all the way around the edge, then I just lightly went back and grabbed that wet red paint and pulled down lightly towards the outer edge of the eye. Then in reverse, basically, come back to the outer edge of the eye. We're going to trace all the way around this outer edge on that line we have left. And once we're all the way around it, then we're going to come back in and pull from that edge back in towards the pupil itself. This really adds some depth and dimension to the paint or the color on the eye and gives it more of a realistic look. So far for me, I've found this to be kind of the best way to represent an eye. I'm sure there's better ways to paint, but for me, this works well, and by the time you're done, it does look like an eye. Now on this other eye over here, since we don't have very much color, I very, very lightly put these lines in and just barely pulled down towards the outer edge because there's not much color in there to work with, so you don't want to drown out that yellow with this red. So just once you get around your edge, very, very lightly pull in here and there on that red to bring that into the yellow. Now that we got that red done, all I did was come back in with a little bit of yellow and just hit it here and there over the top of that red just to break it up a little bit and add a little extra dimension to it. Once I had that done, I also took some white paint and came back around the edges of the eye itself just to clean up any spots that kind of carried over a little too far, just so we kept that roundness to it, and then topped off each eye with one small dab of white paint on the pupil. Now here's where the fun, really kind of fun begins on these eyes. I got some red yarn, cut it and really pulled it apart until I got the thin fibers. Then using some Mod Podge, first I put a little base coat of Mod Podge down and then laid the yarn right on top of that Mod Podge. Once it was there, then I just took more Mod Podge and covered up over those fine yarn hairs that we just put on. This way of doing blood veins in the eyeball is an awesome effect. It is so realistic once it's all done. It's hard to explain. I don't have the talent, as far as I'm concerned, to paint in blood veins on an eye to make it look this realistic. So when I do my eyes, this is really the way I go. I use the yarn because it turns out great. And you can have a lot of fun here. I mean, your eyes can be as bloodshot as you want them to be, or they can be as less bloodshot as you want them to be. It just depends on how much yarn you put on it and how much you add to it. But it really starts giving a life look to the eyes themselves. I absolutely love using yarn to add blood veins to the eyes. Now just repeat this same process for your other eye, doing the exact same thing. Now once those are set basically overnight and cured, you can come back in with some 150 grit sandpaper and sand these things down again just to help smooth them out and keep them round. Once I sanded the eyes completely with 150, I came back in with some 2000 grit, sanded them again just to knock off those harsh sanding edges and keep it as smooth as possible. Once you're done with the sanding, dust them off, and then you can come back in and add more Mod Podge to it. Now here's the thing. To make your eyes look real, you really want to add several layers of Mod Podge to your eyes. Now, in this little video here, I'm not going to show you all the layers that I did, but I did several layers. The more layers you can do to these eyes, and the deeper or the thicker that you can make your Mod Podge on top of the eyes, the better the eye looks, the more realistic it looks. The deeper down those blood veins seem to be, and it really carries out a great effect. So layer these up, put some Mod Podge on them, layer it up, let it dry and cure overnight, come back in, sand it again, add some more Mod Podge to it, let those cure, come back in, sand them again. Now you can do it like you see here, where it's just using a brush and putting on small layers at a time, which works well, and it actually gives you a little more control on how smooth or how round the Mod Podge is. But for me personally, after I did this about 2 or 3 times, I was getting kind of frustrated and bored with doing the Mod Podge over and over again, so I literally took and held onto the toothpick, and I stuck the eyes straight down into the Mod Podge container itself, rolled it around and picked it up, and then stuck it back onto that styrofoam piece you saw there, and just let gravity kind of pull that Mod Podge down over and around the eye. I let that set up for 24 hours, came back in, sanded them down again, and sanding them down again with 150 just to get back, because you lose a little bit of the round shape. And I came back in with 150, sanded it down one more time to bring out the shape and make it more smooth, and then once again hit it with 200, come back again with the 2000 grit sandpaper, hit that again just to knock down those harsh edges, and then I did one last final coat just like this with a brush to bring back all the shine that I had lost when I sanded it off. But if you do this like this, you will have amazing looking eyes. Alright, moving along, let's make some teeth. How about that? 28 teeth total we're making. For this particular project, looking at those teeth, they were really ragged, so I wasn't really worried about sculpting just real nice teeth. Now I wanted to try something out new here, just for giggles, see how it turn out. So what you're seeing here is all I was doing was taking some toilet paper, dipping it straight into my Mache paste, and then wrapping that toilet paper around that toothpick, and then kind of bringing it up to a point at the top. It was working okay, not really the best, so I went back to what I normally use when I make teeth, is clay. And basically just taking the clay and balling it up on the toothpick and then shaping it. You know, for anything that's a canine looking tooth or anything else, I just made kind of a point on the top of it, or flattened it out. Anything that was supposed to be like a molar, sorry, can't say it correctly. It was more like a ball shape that I did, and then came back in with my finger on the top and pressed in on it and made a little indentation just to give it something, you know, more of a flat styled shape, so all these teeth weren't just straight and pointy. The teeth look big. The teeth are big in the picture. They're over exaggerated, so I wanted to do that as well. And of course, anytime you use clay, or even when you're using toilet paper straight into Mache paste, it shrinks down a lot. So I made these things a little bit bigger than what you would normally see, just because I knew they would shrink. And then once they're all done, set them to the side to dry and cure. Alright, so the last little extra piece here that we're going to go over in this tutorial is making the ears. So we covered eyes, teeth, and we're doing the ears here. Start out with some baling wire. It's very easy and bendable, and it's sturdy enough to hold Mache as well. The very first bend you see is basically the flat point where it's going to rest up against the head. Now if you notice over there, I've got the picture in front of me as a reference. The whole idea with the baling wire here was just to get the outline shape of the ear itself kind of as close as possible. Generally when people sculpt, they will sculpt the ear right to the head. These ears on this particular piece, they kind of stuck out away from the head. So just trying something new, using baling wire to get the outer edge, the outer shape. This was the process I did. Just looked over on that reference picture just over and over again, and just manipulating the wire and trying to get that base shape. I really tried to focus on the outside edge of the picture of the ear itself, and just using this wire to create that outside shape. Now you could have done this with cardboard and traced it out. You could have done it several different ways. This was just another one of these deals where I was looking to try some new things and do things in a different fashion than I usually do. And that's why we went with the baling wire. I mean, that's the biggest thing with Mache is push yourself, try new things. You'll never learn anything new unless you try it in a different fashion than you're used to. So once we got this basically shaped up like you see here, it's not the best looking, but it is a general rough outline of how that ear looked. We're going to clip off the extra, and then we'll take some masking tape and we're going to tape these two pieces together. And then the very first thing we'll do is we will wrap the entire wire structure with a base of masking tape. The masking tape just helps everything hold. Mache does not want to hold to wire. It doesn't want to stick to wire. So I always wrap it with tape first. That way if any Mache is going to lay straight to the wire itself, it will stick. But once we've got that taped up into place, then the next thing we're going to do is just take small bits of newspaper, and really just looking at that picture, we're going to add the first bit of meat or bulk to the ear itself. So one little piece at a time. We're going to wrap it around into place, then we're going to tape it into place and just re-reference this picture over and over again. Now once you feel like you've got this, I don't know, meatiness, if that's what you want to call it, or the outside structure to the ear, to where you're comfortable with it and it looks like you've got a good base to go off of, we're going to start adding some Mache to it from that point on. I'm sorry, I wish I could tell you in a better way of exactly what I was looking for, what to do, but I can't. Just looking at that picture, adding paper to it just to get that first outer shape of the ear itself. Now what I'm doing here, and this is why I went with the wire, this is that blue shop towel that you can buy like at Walmart. What we're going to do here is we're going to cut, first of all we set it up and cut it to shape, and then we're going to dip that shop towel straight into the Mache paste itself, and we're going to apply it to the back side of the ear. Apply it to the back side of the ear, wrap over the overlaying edges over to the top side of the ear, and in my mind this is what I was going to do to create some depth into the ear, so there was no, you didn't have to carve anything out. It would just set that back and add some depth and dimension. And then once we applied that piece, then I simply just took smaller pieces of that same blue shop towel, dipped it in the paste, and came back in and finished out covering up the rest of that tape, and then tucking it down towards the inside of the ear like you see here. This was all just to get a base structure of the ear that we're going to attach to the head later on, and then that's when we're really going to add the rest of the detail to the ear and smooth it in to the head itself. But as you can see here, just by doing that, it does give us a decent outline and a decent shape of an ear itself. Hey, thanks for watching this tutorial on how to make the eyes, ears, and the teeth that we had made. I hope that kind of showed you some new things you hadn't thought of before. Hopefully everything we do, you guys are learning something new. This particular project, guys, as far as tutorials, is going to be probably quite a few tutorials long or steps long, and it's taking a little bit longer just because of the fact that I am trying out some new things and some new ideas. So I've done a few things that I didn't need to do, but we recorded them because as I've tried new ideas out, I realized I could have left some steps out. Anyway, you guys get to see it all. Hopefully you like this tutorial. Look forward next week. There should be another tutorial out where we're going to go over this different skin technique that I've done here. We're going to put on, of course, you guys see the ears are now on it, the eyes are now in, the mouth has changed up some, and we got a tongue in here. So this next tutorial that you guys will see, we'll go over all the detail on that, how we got the eyes in here, how we got the mouth where it is now, what I've done here to be at the skinning like this, and it may even be more. I'm going to work on this some more. Depending on how long the video is, it may show some different features we do on the face. I don't know. I'm trying to keep all these tutorials about 20 to 30 minutes long, so if it's going to go further than that, we'll break it off again to another one. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Look forward to next week's tutorial where we do some more detail on this. And as always, keep making something from nothing.
What you want, what you want.